Kelsey Plum for LA had to take a dig at Caitlin Clark. Why do you take a shot at the Golden Goose? You guys were flying before she arrived on one of those airlines that made you pay for a cup of water. Now you're flying private. It's just misstep after misstep. A lot of people are saying, hey man, this league has never made money. It's now going to make money. This is the least profitable, arguably. It'll be over the next 10 years. It's only going to get more profitable as women's basketball gets better, as the Caitlin Clark momentum train.
Colin Cowherd went on air and finally said what everyone was already thinking, and this time, he brought receipts. Kelsey Plum and several veteran players were called out by name. The truth about the CBA negotiations was exposed in front of the entire country, and suddenly, the narrative completely flipped. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark sat on national television looking like the only adult in the room, calm, composed, and unbothered as the chaos unfolded around her. Now fans are asking the real question. Is the Players Association negotiating in good faith, or is this entire CBA situation being deliberately sabotaged from the inside? Drop a comment below. Let's talk.
Or she arrived on one of those airlines that made you pay for a cup of water. One of those airlines that is the planes are the color of a highlighter. Now you're flying private. Okay, if you're in a band and you're staying at the Motel 6 and you add a band member and now you're at the Ritz-Carlton, keep your issues to yourself. All right? You went from a Motel 6 in a sketchy part of town to a Four Seasons in the shopping district.
Let's start with Caitlin Clark, because she's the reason this entire conversation is even happening. And the way she handled herself made everyone else in this story look significantly worse by comparison. Clark sat down at the NBC analyst desk during an NBA broadcast and did something that, apparently, none of the veteran WNBA players currently screaming about CBA negotiations have managed to do even once during this entire mess. She acted like a professional. She broke down plays. She displayed elite basketball IQ on national television. She spoke clearly and confidently to an audience that doesn't even watch WNBA games, and she connected with them effortlessly. No performance. No theatrics. Just pure presence. She made it look easy. And then the topic of CBA negotiations came up, a subject that has turned multiple veterans into car-ranting, slogan-wearing, inflatable rat-placing activists. Clark didn't spiral. She didn't posture. She didn't play the victim. She calmly said she believes a deal will get done within the next couple of weeks. No hysteria. No finger-pointing. No manufactured outrage. Just confidence in the process and a demeanor that quietly said, "We're going to be fine."
Step after misstep. It's time to grow up, girls. Like fast. Like this is the player that got you off the airline that was bright yellow. Right? She got you an upgrade to a better.
Colin Cowherd, who has been watching this situation unfold with the patience of someone who has seen this exact pattern before, made a comparison that was not casual. He compared Caitlin Clark's impact to Michael Jordan in his third year. And that is not hype. That is a deliberate statement about the level of commercial power, cultural influence, and gravitational pull Clark already carries. It's also a statement about how she carries it. Michael Jordan didn't complain his way to icon status. He competed his way there. And Clark is doing the exact same thing. The timing of her NBC appearance made that contrast hit even harder. While Clark was on national television being the calm, composed, thoughtful face the WNBA desperately needs right now, the Players Association was actively misleading fans about the true state of negotiations. The contrast wasn't subtle. It was a side-by-side comparison no one asked for, but everyone saw. And once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Remember, Caitlin Clark's already rich. She made $11 million this year alone in endorsements off the court. So regardless of how these negotiations go, she's set. Nobody else is, right? So when somebody joins the band and everything...
Now let's get into the real mess, because the CBA situation deserves a full breakdown, and the Players Association's behavior throughout this process has been, to put it generously, not great. For weeks, The WNBPA ran a full-scale public relations campaign built entirely on a false narrative. The message was simple, repetitive, everywhere. The owners won't make a serious offer. The league doesn't value the players. Management is trying to lowball workers while the WNBA is growing faster than ever. Social media posts, press releases, sympathetic media coverage. All of it pointed in the same direction. And fans believed it. Why wouldn't they? Who questions a labor union telling you management is being unfair? Players showed up to All-Star Weekend wearing shirts that read, "Pay us what you owe us." They parked an inflatable rat outside the NBA store. The optics were perfect. The messaging was polished. The outrage felt justified. Everyone started pointing fingers at greedy owners holding up progress. Then the actual offer leaked. And the entire narrative collapsed. Because the owners had already placed a massive, comprehensive proposal on the table. Not a lowball offer. Not a token gesture. A real deal. A transformative deal. The kind of proposal that should have sparked serious negotiations, not public theater. Here's what it included. Over 70% of net revenue going directly to players. Average salaries jumping to $530,000 by 2026. Maximum salaries hitting $1.3 million immediately, rising to $2.4 million by 2031, more than triple today's top pay. Charter flights for all teams. Better healthcare. Improved retirement benefits. Real revenue sharing tied directly to league growth. This offer existed the entire time the Players Association was outside stores with inflatable rats telling fans there was nothing on the table. They had the full proposal sitting in their inboxes while wearing those protest shirts at All-Star Weekend. They knew exactly what was being offered, while telling reporters the league wasn't negotiating seriously. When this leaked, the reaction was immediate. And it was not kind. Comment sections that had been full of support flipped overnight. Fans who had defended the players felt manipulated because they had been manipulated. They realized they had been backing a narrative built on information that was demonstrably false. The WNBPA tried to spin it. They shifted arguments, moved goalposts, pivoted from net revenue to gross revenue, hoping confusion would drown out the reality. It didn't. But as bad as that was, it still wasn't the worst part. That came next. The league scheduled a critical face-to-face meeting in New York. Owners cleared their schedules. Financial advisors, legal teams, revenue projections, everything was assembled to finally hammer out a deal. This was the meeting. And two key members of the Players Association Executive Committee did not show up. Kelsey Plum, Nafisa Collier. Their chairs sat empty during the most important negotiating session of the entire CBA process. Their excuse? Travel issues from Miami. Let that sink in. They couldn't book flights to New York in advance for a meeting meant to determine the future of their league and their livelihoods. Meanwhile, dozens of players who joined remotely spent much of the call disengaged, doodling, barely participating, while the future of professional women's basketball was being negotiated. These are the same veterans who publicly demanded that NBA Commissioner Adam Silver personally show up to prove the league was serious. They insisted on his presence, then couldn't get themselves to New York. And here's where this story goes from embarrassing to deeply problematic. Because we now know where Plum and Collier actually were. They were busy running their rival league ventures. Nafisa Collier is a co-owner of Unrivaled, the competing 3-on-3 league actively working to pull players, sponsors, media attention, and fan interest away from the WNBA. Kelsey Plum owns equity in that same league. Brianna Stewart does too. So, let's be very clear about what this means. The people leading negotiations for WNBA players are financially invested in a league that directly competes with the WNBA. Think about that conflict of interest. If the 2026 WNBA season gets delayed or canceled, where do players go? Unrivaled. If WNBA salaries stagnate, which league becomes more attractive? Unrivaled. If the WNBA loses momentum during prolonged labor drama, which league benefits from scooping up disappointed fans? Unrivaled. Their incentive structure does not align with protecting the WNBA's growth. It benefits from instability. And these are the people representing every player in the league. That's the part Colin Cowherd addressed with a bluntness most sports media avoids. He said the veterans need to grow up because they were flying on airlines that charged for water before Caitlin Clark arrived. He compared them to band members angry that the new member is writing all the hits. They're upset she's the reason they're staying at the Four Seasons instead of budget hotels. She created the success they are now enjoying. And instead of protecting that momentum, they're sabotaging it because they can't handle the reality that a second-year player did more for the league's commercial growth than the entire veteran class combined over the past decade. Harsh? Yes. Wrong? Not even close. The numbers don't lie. Attendance records, television ratings, merchandise sales, sold-out arenas, national broadcast deals. All of it surged because of Caitlin Clark. Without Clark, there is no massive TV deal. Without Clark, there are no sold-out arenas. Without Clark, there is no revenue foundation for $1.3 million max contracts. And yet, the same group benefiting most from her impact ranked her 9th in guard voting, while demanding salaries that only exist because of her presence. That contradiction is at the heart of this entire controversy. The cognitive dissonance is genuinely impressive. Kelsey Plum's comments at All-Star Weekend, dismissing Caitlin Clark's impact and framing the league's explosive growth as some vague collective achievement that Clark merely coincided with, landed exactly as poorly as they deserved to. And Colin Cowherd addressed Plum directly. The message was not gentle. The jealousy was transparent. The insecurity was obvious. And the timing could not have been worse. Because just days later, Clark sat on NBC looking exactly like the kind of composed, intelligent, professional representative the league desperately needs. That contrast did more damage to Plum's credibility than any criticism ever could. The veteran's pattern of behavior toward Clark has been consistent since the moment she entered the league. Cheap shots on the court that forced the league to step in. Dismissive press conferences after record-breaking performances. Passive-aggressive social media posts about the league being bigger than one person, from players whose jersey sales were virtually non-existent before Clark made WNBA merchandise culturally relevant. Gatekeeping new fans who discovered the sport because of Clark, lecturing them about respecting the league's history, a league they themselves failed to make mainstream for decades. Indiana Fever management eventually had to bring in Sophie Cunningham, the youngest black belt in Missouri history, specifically to serve as a physical deterrent against the constant targeting Clark was facing. Let that sink in. An elite professional sports league had to assign a designated protector to its biggest star because her own peers were targeting her. Everything Clark built. Every ounce of momentum the league finally gained. All held hostage. And for what? Demanding 30% of gross revenue from a league that has lost over $300 million across 30 years is not negotiation. It's fantasy disguised as advocacy. And the people making those demands have a documented conflict of interest, a history of misleading fans, a pattern of skipping critical negotiations, and a track record of targeting the player most responsible for the league's current success. Cowherd said what needed to be said. The veterans need to recognize what they have in Caitlin Clark before they finish destroying the momentum she created. The league needed a mainstream voice willing to cut through the noise and call this situation exactly what it is. And he did loudly and without apology. Whether the veterans listen is another story. Based on recent evidence, don't hold your breath. Colin Cowherd said what most people were already thinking and put it all on record. Kelsey Plum and the veterans got their response. And Caitlin Clark kept winning without saying a single word. If this video hit home, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss a drop. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. See you next time.